himself. Never at Jon Snow. Let it not be known that Samwell stayed a coward. Sometimes being brave was a little more than standing firm and holding a blade, even in the midst of stupidity.
Was Jon... What was he doing?
And he was wanking, I think.
Yeah.
Oh.
Let me Well, he was palming himself and stroking himself where he curves pink and hard.
Okay,
So,
fine, okay.
he tries hard after that. Thinks Jon must view him as a friend by now. He has to. He's laughed with him, smiled at him, sparred with him, taught him, helped him. But it's all of those things and more that take them on their boisterous little cloud of almost warmth, the Wall's makeshift tavern that night. Sam was so brave, in fact, that he locks the door after himself as they both enter. Tells Jon he wants to keep the cold out. Despite how I may look, I get chilly too. Oh no. Okay, here comes the voices. And had taken delight in Jon's answering grin, sorry, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners. He's not even sure how it happens. Jon perches upon the bar and Sam settles for one of the old stools that creaks under him, and they drink, reveling in the warm burn of the alcohol as it wanders down their esophaguses to twirl pleasantly in their stomachs. The stench of it burns Sam's nostrils and turns his taste buds numb. He has little more than a mug and a half and drinks them slow. He wants to draw this out, keep Jon for his own while he can. Watches the dark-haired man down two and go for a third with an amused eye. I've seen it, you know, Jon says after a moment. Voice tinged and dragged down the edges from the liqueur. Just no, I've been told it ain't nothing yet. No, you. Pardon? The way you look at me. You think I don't see? He kicks a leg up. I do see. A ranger. Sam remembers bitterly. For a long moment he says nothing. Briefly wonders if Jon remembers even speaking as he lifts his mug back to his lips for another sip. Sam remembers his promise to himself. Be brave, he thinks. Just be brave.
Is he a scout?
He draws to his feet. The stool scrapes under him as he pushes it back, and he steps for Jon. Oh, Aaron's calling. Chat him to the call without telling him what's going on.
Yeah.
And he steps before Jon, just as the mug leaves his lips, and he looks up at Sam. Eyes twinkling, it has to be the alcohol. Never before have Jon's eyes twinkled. Can I? He lifts a hand, it hovers absently between them, and he draws in another anxious breath. Can I touch? And not much more needs to be said before Jon is nodding at him, his smile fading, his eyes fixed on Sam's plump fingers as they draw near him. He only looks away when they touch his skin. His eyes drift closer, and Sam sucks in a sharp breath, fingertips ghosting over the shadowy stubble tinting his jaw, over the pale planes of his cheekbones, from the angular line of his throat, over the pale skin there that he remembers seeing stretched out, bare, for him, in brackets. And he presses down further, down to the collar of Jon's jerkin, the leather feeling wrong and harsh after a moment of smoothness of skin. Sam gives it an absent tug, loosens the topmost fastening, enough to bear the top of Jon Snow's chest. And for the moment, that's enough. Jon makes a content, soft sound, "Oh," in response. Sam's wandering hands. He's so enraptured, so consumed with his need for more that he wriggles his hand free from his other glove, tosses it haphazardly aside, doesn't care where it lands, and skims his fingers over the firm lines of muscle wound over Jon's chest. Palms brushing over his pectorals, down his sternum, where, with quivering hands, Samwell tugs the fastenings free and presses over his abdomen. That pale chest seems to arch into him as Jon presses his arm back, braces himself against the bar top, eyes still closed, looking for all the world, just like one of those girls in the whore harnesses Samwell has walked past too many times. Samwell! He only realises his hands have stopped moving when Jon's eyes fall open, gazing imploringly into Sam's own, looking past his exterior, like he always has done, seemingly into his soul. And Sam feels bare under it, naked, despite being fully clothed. He huffs something he doesn't even fully comprehend before his hands resume their gentle exploration. But Jon is more eager to ensure his concentration doesn't lapse this time. His gloves still cover him to his wrists, and his hands press over the back of Sam's, guiding them to his hips, to his trousers, helping him with the knots and shifting forward so they fall easily from him. Paul lifts his boots, and Sam can only stare. Jon is beautiful. Don't interrupt, Aaron. Jon is beautiful. Ethereal, otherworldly in all the best ways. Soft and perfect to the touch. As soft and perfect as he looks, and his cock stands pale, pink and proud, curved by his hip. It's also odd to Samwell. He's seen John as this weapon of deadly proportions, this element that couldn't be reckoned with, this fourth of strength, but like this. He was pliant. He was lilling. He was submissive under Sam's callous touch. He's as gentle as Sam always known him to be. He reaches up, presses his fingers through those dark locks, through that damp and cold hair, and drags the stool back behind him with the other, settles himself upon it, and draws John into him, settling him with his thighs bracketing Sam's. John is perfect like this. His pale skin is kiss-dimpled with goosebumps, and he trembles somewhat from the cold, and his gaze is heavy, settled upon Sam. Closing upon him like he's the only thing in the room, in the universe, as if he's all that he has, and a heavy part of Sam knows that might be true. Just like that, John is inching closer, tilting his face, eyes sliding closed, and then his lips are upon Sam's. His hands braced around Sam's broad shoulders, holding him as if he fears Sam will shove him away and bolt for the frost outside. But he doesn't. Sam's hands settle upon John's abdomen, drift slower to the bare hips, press gently, thumbs digging into the hollows of the hip bones, drifting over the oversensitive skin of his cock. That has him stiffening and gasping. I think I'll say cock, stopping gasping. Muscles gone rigid under pale skin. He breaks their kiss to arch towards into Sam's touch, and Sam is utterly powerless to deny him. Closing his hand into a loose fist around John, watching him roll his hips towards into his willing hands, and damn if that alone is the best thing Sam's ever seen. Things move by in a flurry after that. Sam thinks his alcohol must have kicked in several moments too late, because before he knows it, they're using the oil for the lanterns for something he's never seen, even thought of. Wow. And he has John crying out over his fingers, buried and crooked inside him, and then his cock replaces him, sinks into his delicious heat that makes Samwell never wish to abandon it, to own it and keep it as his own secret, to hide it for as long as he can, to take and own it greedily.
Are you kidding me?
He feels better than any whore could ever imagine, and he's imagined many. He warms him in ways no amount of alcohol, fire, nor furs could. He makes the soles of Samwell's feet tingle with arousal. His fingertips go numb, or maybe that's the cold, and John's hand reached back to brace him upon the bar top, to raise him and drop his hips back down upon Sam's seat and watching him. Sam could do this for hours, days, weeks, if it were allowed. The way John's head tips back, the way his kissed raw lips fall open, the way he fucks himself steadily upon Samwell's cock is perfect. So perfect that Sam knows it's not killing that John is made for. It's something else entirely. His hands close around the sharp curves of John's hips to help him drop down those last few inches, and Sam lets out a surprised sound after 3 steady tugs. Head snapping up, jerking down to where they are joined, as if he expects to see some evidence of the shocking white-hot pleasure there. But Sam gives him another pull and he forgets. He trembles and shakes, and Sam holds onto him, touches him, mesmerizes his skin like an explorer marking points on a map. Each corner and curve that he knows will be littered with scars. For long in a place like this was once never truly safe. Moments like this were far and few between, and the Night's Watch was no place for affection, no place for hidden moments of secrets. But in places like this, affection was exactly what they each craved. Familiar touch became more like glimmering gold and emeralds, genuine smiles like diamonds in the rough. John's arm slips. He knocks his drink over. The wine spills like blood over the cracked wood. The mug rolls somewhere off the edge of the bar to clatter the floor, but neither of them notice nor hear it. Two wound through and strung up and tangled in one another, even so much as spare thought for anything more. Thumb! John gasps, reaching down between them to grip his cock, hands still remaining still, not stroking, not squeezing, just holding, and Sam lets him. Watches him with eyes still filled with that same awe, that same pride as he's reflected since the first time he settled his eyes upon him. You're gorgeous! Do you know that? He says, lips curling into a similarly awestruck smile, as John almost grins back, before a particular sharp press down, and he comes between them, hot and wet and in a rush, over the leather of his gloves, stark against his pale skin, over his stomach, over Sam's trousers, going stiff and rigid and shaking in the circle of Samwell's arms, before he tips forwards and hands himself over completely, spasming at each of Sam's lingering and languid thrusts upwards. His oversensitive body wrung out. Then it's Sam's turn. fingers scrabbling blindly over the pale and purple expanse of John's back, down to the firm globes of the backside. Blunt nails digging into pale flesh as he comes. Milks himself, pump after pump inside John, who can only gasp wetly into the curve of his neck. Sorry, that next line. A long moment of silence acts as their symphony when they're done, marked by the beats of their heavy breeze and with the steady baritone of the cracking fire somewhere behind them. I'm cold, John whispers a moment later, still lying, slumped in Sam's lap. He shifts up and Sam slips through the wet and unpleasant sound. Something odd flickers over John's expression as he slides from Sam, and he half winces as he bends for his trousers, tugs them swiftly up and ties the fastenings, retrieving his tunic and jerkin and tugging both on, just as Sam tucks himself back into his trousers and draws to his feet, knees weak. John, he says a moment later. John looks up to him, tugging his cloak back over his broad shoulders and wiping his glove on the inside of the thick material. Will you kiss me? Sam asks. He dares a peek up and John is grinning. He steps in, an arm goes back around one of Sam's shoulders, tugs him in for a chaste kiss to the lips. John's are cold, not entirely surprising, Sam thinks. Watches him turn and stride to the door. His steps odd and jerky with an almost limp to them. Sam watches him until the snow swirls out to greet him and seal him back into the night, leaving him wondering if there's something that words will never be able to claim for their own. From then onward, Samwell knew Jon Snow is not built for killing. Samwell Tully knows Jon Snow will take no delight in killing, in seeing blood tint the pure white snow that inks their frozen wasteland. Takes no joy in stealing a life before it's due to depart. Takes no enjoyment from violence. He's not made for war. He's not built to fight. A warrior has no space in his heart for love, for family, for his brothers on the wall. No, Jon Snow was built for something else. Something far greater than Samwell wants him to see, wants him to understand and take to heart. Something that would perhaps keep them all from losing themselves in the endless white. Something that would keep them warm in their icy black nights. Jon Snow was built to love.
Yeah.